So welcome to the new season of Mike's Podcast Club, and I'm very, very chuffed to bits to welcome Steph Fuccio from Coffee Like Media to talk about how to massage your podcast copy with ChatGPT. Over to you, Steph.
Yay! And I have to show off my little Mike's Podcast Club pin that I got at the podcast show in London this year. So happy to meet you both there, or to see you both there. Sweet. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Vic and Charles, for the opportunity to be here again. And yeah, I'm excited, but I'm also, technology. Right. So I started as a podcast creator, would started doing podcast editing. I now do a split between podcast management and podcast marketing / branding. It changes every day because this is an etch a sketch place podcasting, so it changes quite often. For the past year and a half, I've been using ChatGPT daily, mostly for podcast marketing stuff, copy, anything writing wise, even some emails, press releases, like literally everything. I go, do I need to do this, or can ChatGPT help me do this quicker so I can like put my brain into the fun stuff? I know some people are still very hesitant with ChatGPT. Sorry, I know some folks are still pretty hesitant with ChatGPT or the large language models or AI in general. And I just want to say, honestly, there's a lot to think about. There are a lot of decisions to make, but the way I do it is I do it with my own content because I feel like that's less of a slippery slope. And I'm not like taking information generally from somewhere that I'm not sure where it's coming from. So I'll be using my transcript quite a bit, my podcast transcript, in what I'm going to show you. Also, with ChatGPT and with any of these tools, I heard the phrase wetware and hardware recently, and which I love. The wetware is your brain, and the hardware is clearly the technology, and you need to use both. You can't let ChatGPT or any like tool do everything for you. You have to keep it in check. You have to like follow up and ask questions and massage stuff even afterwards and make sure it's what you want. These tools may eventually get to the point where they can do things for us, but right now they're doing things with us. And that's a mindset that's really, really important. La, 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 la. Now, there are tools that already do a lot of the stuff that I'm going to show you today by just uploading your episode, and they'll do everything for you and show you the results. And you may or may not like those results. I don't like them because I'm a control freak. I want more control over what comes out and how much back and forth that you'll see that I do with ChatGPT. That's what I like to do. So if you like the tools that already exist, some of them are pretty good, then continue to use them. But I think you might have more fun doing it this way. And that's why I want to show this to you today. I also have a list over on my website with like 100 different ways you can use ChatGPT for your marketing copy. And I'll share that in just a minute. Yeah. I'll share that after I'm done so you can click on that and then pay attention to it, because you could get lost in it right now because there's literally 100 ways, which is nuts. I'm not showing you 100 today. A lot of these things I show in my podcast, which is it's video, audio, and a newsletter. It's called Chatty and Me. I put the link when I first came in here, chattyandme.substack.com. So you can follow along for different ways that I use ChatGPT. There's an entire 20, 25-ish episodes that are just podcast related, specifically podcast marketing. Okay, enough. I want to get to the fun stuff. So the first bit I want to show you is a quick walkthrough of ChatGPT. Before I do that, in the chat room, can you just give me a 1 if you've used ChatGPT? Chatty. I'm just going to call it Chatty because that's so much easier. If you've used Chatty before, hit 1. If you have not, hit 2. Wow. Okay. Super encouraged by that. Let me share my screen. So I'll go a little quicker through this part because it looks like a lot of folks have used it before. Sorry, pulling up ChatGPT. For some reason it closed. Today was a massive tech issue day, but we're going to ignore that right now. Okay. So can you see ChatGPT on my screen? Is that showing up? Okay, great. So the super quick overview of what you're looking at on the right side, once you log in, which you should for reasons I'll show you in a second, you'll have all of the usual like profile stuff, your settings, whether you want to upgrade and get to the paid versions. I'm not going to show you the paid version. I'm dealing only in the ones that everybody has access to right now, and there's a number of versions there. So there's all of that stuff over on the right-hand side. Down on the bottom on the right are many more options that I literally never use, so I'm not going over those right now. The main bit is in the middle here, down at the bottom, the prompt window where you type in the things that you want to do. I don't actually want to use custom stuff right now. And over on the left, why you may want to log in is because you can actually save a lot of the chats that you have and come back to them and continue those conversations or copy the information or do various things with them. I've even got a folder in here where I'm starting to write I'm starting to brainstorm book ideas, blah, blah, blah. So you can see like even I have like Mike's pod description 1, description 2. I was working in stuff today for this information for you. Yeah, so that's the main thing. There's some other stuff down at the left bottom as well. If you want to use AI art and that kind of thing, there's some stuff there. And newsletter archive, there's like a more advanced features. At the top, this little right thingy here, that's how when you're in, like if I'm in one of these chats and I hit this little, what is that, like a pencil, then it goes to a new one. So that's where you can start a new chat. So that's the basic overview of the look of ChatGPT on the mobile. Now, there's also the ChatGPT mobile, sorry, on the web. There's the mobile app, which I adore, except for today when I'm getting an error message that I've never seen before. So I cannot, oh, hello.
I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
Did you hear that? Sorry, could you repeat that?
I didn't hear anything, but I can repeat what I said earlier or help with something else. Could you clarify what you meant?
Yeah, so what can I do on the mobile app that I can't do on the web app?
The mobile app gives you a few extra features compared to the web app, like voice input and conversation, which lets you speak your questions or responses instead of typing. It also integrates more smoothly with your phone, allowing you to share things from other apps, like links or images, directly into our conversation.
And I'm actually going to stop it by just pressing on that. That's the ChatGPT mobile app. It is available for free on Android and iOS. It wasn't working all evening and suddenly it just started. So this is a good sign. So that's the quick overview of the web app and the mobile app. So now I want to show you how to massage some of your stuff. And I want to start by going over, by using a transcript to write your episode summary. So, oh, I forgot to go over this part here. The different types. If you're not using the internet, 3.5 works. If you are using the internet, you want model 4.0. If you want to do something quick, 4.0 mini is a little bit quicker and lighter, but I don't believe it has internet access. If you want to let ChatGPT decide which one to use, and again, these are all the free ones, you can pick dynamic and it will choose depending on what you're asking it to do. Generally speaking, I kind of just stay on 4.0 because I'm always kind of dipping into the internet in some way, shape, or form, even if it is to my own content sometimes. So yeah, so there is that. Okay, so I've got my transcript on my desktop. So I'm going to go in here and grab it. There it is, transcripts. And you can only do the attachment thing right now. Other than on the free versions, you can only do that on 4.0. So I put that in there and then I say, ooh, write a 3-sentence summary of this text. I'm intentionally not saying podcast because ChatGPT and other LLMs, it's the collective us. And a lot of folks aren't necessarily very good at writing their podcast episode summaries. And I don't want to pull from the norm of that. I want just a summary, and then I want to massage it into what I want. So I'm just going to ask it to give me a 3-sentence summary. Chatty is very, very wordy. So I tend to give it very strong parameters: 3 sentences, 1 sentence, 3 words, 5 words. I give it those parameters because otherwise it just gives you a giant bit of text, and then you have to spend more time going back and forth with it. Okay. And are we still seeing the prompts? Is that okay? Okay, thank you. So you can see it starts out in this episode, super boring way. So I want to say, start with a question. And here's where I start prompt chaining, which is basically just like having a conversation with Chatty and massaging it. It's my writing intern, and I am asking it to help me to change how it looks. How can a podcast truly stand out in a crowded market? Not bad. In this episode, I still don't want that phrase. So let's say focus more on the value. Oh, wait. Let's do this. Make a list of the top 3, because it's right now it's still writing it like most people write their podcast episode summaries, and I don't want that. I want something different. So I'm going to leave that description for a little bit. And again, this is the part of the show notes that's before the links. It's just like the 2-3 sentences, whatever you do right there. I tend to keep them pretty short. So I want to say from the transcripts, make a list of the top 3 takeaways from the episode. Yeah. And then I want to incorporate that back into the description. Perfect. And as always, Chatty writes too much. So I'm going to say, take those titles, not the description, and use them in a summary sentence. Use them in the second sentence after the question. Explore different. Okay, no bold needed. So you just go back and forth and back and forth, and you change whatever you want to. Perfect. The value. So I've got a hook at the beginning. Don't use in this episode. Oh, wait. Use conversation, not episode. And I'm going to do one more thing in this prompt chain after this, and then we'll see where we are in this conversation. Okay. So now I want to change the tone. It's a little bit dry, don't you think? I want it a little bit less formal. So we're not going to change the order or the wording like I did in the other bits of the prompt chaining. I want to do the tone a bit more playful and casual, because you really want the tone to match the episode, and the episode is pretty like fast-paced and playful, experimental, that kind of thing. Replace dive, delve, uses those words too much. Getting creative with social media while exploring. They also swap tips on growing an audience by letting the host personality shine through. I especially like that last one. I like this. Honestly, if this wasn't a timed event, I would probably keep going for a little while until it was perfect, and then I would copy it over. But for the sake of moving on and showing you the next bit, I mostly wanted to show you can change the order, you can change the content. Again, this is all pulling from the transcript at first. You can like leave it and ask it to make lists like I did, and then pull from the lists. You can ask it to pull out like keywords or a quote if you want to do that for your episode and it can pull out that. You could say, oh, pull out, this is always fun, pull out 3 quotes from the transcript. And maybe you want to pull in a quote to your episode, to your show notes, and do that. Now, are they going to be as good as if you had pulled it out while you were editing? I don't know. But it's an option. If you're pressed for time and you want to get a quote, you can, keep asking it until you find one that you like, and you can do that. Now, so I've got the show notes pretty much, but what about the episode title? Okay, so how about an episode title? Do we want to do that there, or do we want to do that with the audio? Because you can actually go back and forth between the web version and, are you still there? And the mobile version. I think it's going back to no. Hey, Vic, what's the stop time? I don't want to go over. I don't remember what time we started.
Let's see where you are at 1:15.
Okay, cool. Okay, so when you go into the mobile, you can see that I didn't actually label it yet. Let me label it. Well, I know it's this last one that we did. As you're having the conversation, whether it be in text or in audio, it propagates the transcript on the mobile app as well. And you can usually switch between the two. However, today's glitch is going in that direction. So what I can do instead is start a new one on the mobile app. And I can actually read out the, let's see if this works. Read out the episode. Hello.
It seems like you might be asking for something to be read aloud, but could you clarify what episode you're referring to?
Yeah, actually, I need your help. I have a podcast episode description, and I need your help in coming up with some titles. Can I read out the episode description to you?
Of course. Feel free to read out the episode description.
Okay, so how can a podcast stand out when there are so many out there? In this fun chat of Podcast to Connect, Steph and April break down brand differentiation, building a personal connection with listeners, and getting creative with social media, all the while exploring what makes April's Dorky podcast unique in the world of history podcasts. They also swap tips on growing an audience by letting the host personality shine through. Now, that's the description. Can I tell you the parameter, like what I'd like the titles to include? Go. And when it freezes like this, which happens often, you just X out and go back in and press the headphones to go back in. And it already said in the transcript, here, let me show you. It already said, of course, feel free to blah, 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 blah. So now I'm going to go back in and just pick up where I left off. Okay, so can you give me 5 possible episode titles from that description?
I'll need you to read or share the episode description first so I can come up with the titles. Go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, let's try this one more time. How can a podcast stand out when there are so many out there? In a fun chat from Podcast to Connect, Steph and April break down brand differentiation, building a personal connection with listeners, and getting creative with social media, all while exploring what makes April's Dorky podcast unique in the world of history podcasts. They also swap tips on growing an audience by letting the host personality shine through. Now, can I have 5? Okay, here we go.
Got it. 5 possible episode titles based on that description. 1, standing out in the podcast crowd, creative tips from Steph and April. 2, building a unique podcast brand, insights from Dorky Podcast. 3, at your personality shine, growing your audience with Steph and April. 4, history, connection, and creativity, April's Dorky Podcast journey. 5, differentiating your podcast, strategies for success with Steph and April. How do these sound?
Okay, but they are a bit long. Can you give me those 5 again, but keep each title to less than 5 words?
Sure. Here's a shorter version of each title. 1, standing out in podcasting, crafting a unique podcast. 3, grow your podcast audience. 4, history meets personality. 5, podcast success tips. These should be more concise. Do any of these work better for you?
Yeah, they do. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to X out of that. You can also prompt chain verbally as well. And as you're doing it, the entire transcript is available here. And it didn't used to be synced to the web version, but lately it has been. So you can access it in both places, no matter where you're doing the work with Chatty. So that is a nice thing to do. Before I go into the next one, can I take questions? Any questions now? Are there any questions now?
Yeah, there's one question now, and that's
Okay.
from, let me just get my questions doc up.
Yeah.
That's from Simit. If you upload the same transcript and write the same prompts, will you get the exact same results every time?
Really good question. Generally, no, but they might be similar. Because I did this exact same thing with the same transcript with titles today. And I don't think I can show it to you side by side, but they are a little different. So there's some, because it is based on the same transcript, it will be similar-ish, but it's not exactly the same. I have definitely found using the same content, it's a little bit different each time. That's a really good question.
And is the app free?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
We love free stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Like one of the things I really like to do with the app is not text-based at all. It's actually just brainstorming ideas. Like if I need to plan something and I need to talk it out loud, I'll be like, ask me like questions to make me think through how to do this, or ask me like, I don't know how to plan this out, or what are your suggestions on how to do this, or you're like a brand manager, to walk me through this kind of thing. You know, you can give Chatty different personas, which is like their expertise, and then ask them questions. Again, it's not a person, so you have to take everything they do with a grain of salt, everything it does with a grain of salt. But I find that as a talker, I like to talk out a lot of stuff if I'm not like writing it down or copying it over to somewhere for text with, you know, huge pieces of text. I like to talk through something I'm thinking through. So the voice app really comes in handy. Then when we land on something and then I prompt chain it to where I want it, I can still copy it over somewhere and use that final plan, that final result, that final idea. But I literally, I'll walk around, I'll be cooking, or I'll like, you know, just be like, and like, I really need to figure this out, but I don't want to like sit and read tons of stuff from a Google search. So I'll literally just do that, which will probably be better when Search GPT comes out. But right now, you do have to do a fair bit of checking depending on what you're asking it to give you feedback on and ask you questions of and that kind of thing. So
What's Search GPT, Steph?
Oh, Search GPT is the OpenAI's search combined with ChatGPT. It's supposed to be coming out soon.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
I've got a question from Eric.
Yeah.
So I think this is great with the talk of the show notes, episode descriptions. Can you tell Chatty to include keywords, like keywords for search for SEO?
You can, for example, okay. It's And we're talking about for websites, right? Because some people still use SEO for podcast titles and stuff.
I'd say, I'd say it's more including, can you ask it to include certain keywords?
Oh, in the description, oh, I see. I thought they were asking for like a list of things. Yeah, okay. Yes. Episode. Absolutely. I tend to ask, oh yeah. So my limit is reached on all of them. You can. The answer is you can. You literally just say include this word in there, include these words in there. You can give it a list if you want to. If you have a list of, I mean, for something this short, you probably wouldn't have a PDF, but you could on GPT-4o, you could upload that if you did have a longer text and say include these keywords.
Oh, brilliant.
If this is attached to a monetization moment, I would seriously check it afterwards, again, because it's your assistant, not your worker. And that would be, there are higher stakes included with that. But for anything else, I'd say, yeah, have it draft it and then review it.
Just remind us what's happening on the screen now.
Yes, you have a rate limit. Every few hours it resets. I've tried to figure out how much it is and how often it is, and I don't know. It keeps changing, I should say. I do know I've tracked it and it changes. And so I'm not exactly sure how much it is at any given time.
So this is the free model.
Very.
So because it's
This is
free,
the
you
free
have
model.
you have limited prompts, so you can
Yeah.
ask it. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a primary thing that I do is to get people onto the free model. So I try to use this one as much as possible.
Mhm.
So I haven't, and I honestly, I haven't needed to, for what I do with it myself and for the training that I do, I haven't needed to use the paid one yet, even though it's tempting, but I don't know. Yeah. So right now I am at my limit. But what else can I show you? Hold on one second. I've got some other videos because I had a feeling this might happen. So we did I've got a 3-minute video on how you can enhance your podcast description. Should I play that?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if this works. Okay, so one of the first things listeners, can you see it and hear it?
Yeah.
Magic. They're going to see about your podcast, if they're searching, is going to be the podcast description. So let's spend a few minutes tightening that up with ChatGPT. This is a description that is in pretty much everywhere, but I'm showing it to you in Spotify. So let's take that over. Let's start a new chat. I don't need the internet, so I'm going to do this in 3.5 versus 4.0 and save my 4.0 time. And I'm going to say, need help making this stronger. I'm intentionally not telling it it's a podcast description, and I'm taking out the information about the company because I find that because it's the collective us, copy-wise, writing-wise, we tend to like, how do I say this? Write very yelling. We yell when we write about podcasts, and I don't want to yell with this. I don't want to be like a used car salesman on a TV show kind of thing, or on a TV commercial kind of thing. So I want it to be a little more subtle and engaging. So I'm not telling it's a podcast. So let's see what it comes up with. If you're embarking on a journey of podcasting to connect with like-minded individuals and cultivating, okay, I can already tell that it's got some highfalutin vocabulary, so I'm going to say a bit more casual language. If you're thinking about starting a podcast to find your tribe and build something special, you're in the right spot. We're here to help you understand why and how to connect with and captivate your listeners. Boom! Okay, that's infinitely better. Let's look at the original. Where was my original? Here it is. It was, if you're creating or want to create a podcast to find your people and build a business or community, welcome. We're here to share the why and how of attracting and engaging with your listenership. So you can already tell I stumbled on my own description. And the final one that I'll probably use is, if you're thinking about starting a podcast to find your tribe and build something special, you're in the right spot. We're here to help you understand why and how to connect with and captivate your listeners. So it did use some of the vocabulary that I used in the original one. I'm not sure about tribe, because I do tend to work with small business owners, and I'm not sure tribe is a word they would use. So I'll probably, let's see, replace tribe. But the general vibe of it and the succinctness of it, I think, is really good. Find your community. Yeah, that's what I was going to replace it with. So I'm pretty happy with that. So that's where I would stop, and I would probably say thank you. Thank you, because I'm a very polite AI user. And there you have it. On Chatty and Me, I have a whole bunch of other videos on even using it for LinkedIn, like LinkedIn, to help LinkedIn posts, not to write them, to get hashtags on for LinkedIn, oh my gosh, we did blog posts. I had a few guests on where I helped them do things that they wanted to do for their podcast copy. We did a guest episode with blog posts. We did a guest episode with a woman that's taking her podcast episodes and turning it into a book. Literally, if there's anything with text for your podcast, this is a really good way to get some, like, an external brain on it to do some of the initial work. So then you can go in and do the creative work with it, so that you can save your brain for the really important bits. So that's what I do over at Chatty and Me. And if anybody is interested in coming on, you have a specific thing that you want to do, you're more than welcome to come on and be a guest. The guest application form is on the newsletter, chattyandme.substack.com.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steph. Fascinating stuff. Scary stuff. Fascinating stuff. Yeah, I feel like a grandma anytime I see any new technology nowadays. I'm like, isn't that? And when you were doing the voice thing, I was like, oh my God, it's like, it's a person. And she even stumbled and like hesitated and stuff, not like a robot, not like Siri in the old days. It's like, it is mind blowing.
There's still stumbles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also, what's the word? It's also comforting to know that you're not getting, Chatty is not taking information from other sources. It's just purely what you're putting in. So it's your transcript you're putting in. It's your ideas that you're putting in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can ask it to do research and all that kind of thing, but again, it's not built for that. It's a language predictor. It's not a search engine yet. And to make it a little more comforting and less scary, the last episode I did on Chatty and Me was about how ChatGPT can't spell. And it's a super short episode, and it's really funny because it just goes and it like says a few letters and then just kind of halts. And it's like, see, it's not something that's really going to overtake anytime soon. It's still something that's built by us, and we're inherently flawed. So if you have 5 minutes, go watch that episode. It's pretty funny.
But you've really taken the scaries out of it as well, because it's really, when you how you describe it, that it's your writing assistant, it's your intern. I think that really flips it in my head to saying, okay, it's not this great oracle of knowledge, and it's helping tweak what you've already done and helping.
Well, because I mean, I was a geeky language person before I was in podcasting, and so I dealt with like natural language processing and all that stuff. But basically, it's not an organic thing. It's a language predictor. It literally is trained on all of this content. Unfortunately, and why it seems so formal is because it's on a lot of ChatGPT is trained on a lot of content, a lot of academic content. And that's why the formality is so low. So it's taking all of that and predicting what is usually the next word. What is usually the next word? What is usually the next word? And seems human, especially when you're using the voice function, but it's not thinking. It's just predicting the word based on all of the texts that has been inputted to it. Yeah. Sorry, that was a moment.
You mentioned when you were chatting to Chatty, you said, "Oh, that sounds like a very ChatGPT word." What are some of the key words we should watch out for?
Oh my gosh. It must love the D ones. Delve and dive. It absolutely adores. Discover. No, is it discover? I'm not very, I'm sure people, the folks that wrote one before, can you write some of the common words over in the chat room? Because I know you, yes, delve, Linda.
It likes a deep dive, or it likes to say imagine.
Yeah. And for the podcast stuff, the reason why I don't say it's a podcast thing is very often is because it does that kind of like TV show, like wah, 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 infomercial kind of vibe. And that's not generally what I want my text to be like in a world.
Yeah, and so I think Jamie's a bit of a ChatGPT expert on the call today. In chat, he's been explaining a lot of the things. But yeah, you could probably ask ChatGPT to tell you some words that he uses all the time, but not to include them.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I had a question from Dave, and he was saying that it was taking a little bit longer because of the tech issues, but how long do you think it'd take generally to do that 3-sentence summary?
It depends on how much you change it and how long you do the prompt chaining for. I tend to get in the nitty-gritty, and I'll actually, for me, how I write is I'll just kind of like I'll write and I'll walk away and I'll let my brain work on it, and then I'll come back and look at it again. And I tend to do the same thing even with ChatGPT. I'll go back and forth and I'll change things. Then I'll walk away for a while and I'll come back, or I'll go to another screen and come back, and then I'll read it one more time. And then I might continue prompt chaining or I might not. So I'm a bit obsessive on words. So I would probably spend more time than what we spent today, like half an hour or so, 45 minutes, and then come back to it, which doesn't seem like it's a time saver. And it's not a time saver for me in general yet. It's a brain saver because for me, summarizing is incredibly hard. Writing a lot is easy for me. Summarizing is very hard. So what I do is I input a lot, and then Chatty summarizes it, and then I get to massage it. And in the end, even though it's the same time, I leave with more mental power. Like I don't have to spend as much time trying to condense it. And that's what makes it hard for me. So it just depends on how you function, how you write, like what your strengths are and what you need Chatty to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it does. Yeah. I know you've shared this with me and Charles. You've got a massive list on what other ways that ChatGPT can help with your podcasting copy and your podcasting. Give us a few surprising ones there, Steph.
One I had a client use recently was press releases. She had never written one before, and in lieu of me massaging her ideas into a press release, then having her do it and have her and I go back and forth, I said, tell you what, I want you to go in there and just take your ideas and put it into ChatGPT first, because press releases are a very, very set format. Like there's definitely a way to do it. And she did. And by the time I got her first draft, there was only one thing more I could think of doing. Like the order was perfect. Like she had the hook and the information and the contact thing at the end, and the structure of it was really good. Yeah, so it was shocking to me, but I'm actually pulling up that blog post right now to see what else was in there.
Oh, I think Charles had popped into chat as well, very helpfully.
Oh yeah. Wait, too many windows open. There it is. Also the visualizations for but that's not really for writing, but you can take your downloads from your podcast host and put it in and get some visualizations.
So you could you could download your stats as like an Excel spreadsheet, upload it to ChatGPT, and it can give you some like pie charts.
As a CSV file. Yeah, you can. Now that is the slipperiest thing that I've done with it, which is why I didn't even talk about it until now because it's not the best looking thing, and sometimes it does freeze because it shows you like the little Python thing where it's like doing its magic, and like I have a video on it and you could see it used all of the information and everything's so tightly in there that you can hardly read the pie charts and stuff like that. So it's not the best use, but it is super fun to watch it work.
And the great thing with this is it's free and you can play with it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to publish anything. You can just play and test it out and see if it's for you. And what I'm getting from this is that you've got to feed the beast, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
And feed it. How I don't use ChatGPT, I use Gemini, and which is Google's version. And how I feel it's useful is that you've almost got to treat it like a child,
mm-hmm.
and give it the information and feed the beast. Not that children are beast, well they are, and then you've got to sort of you've got to educate it for it to spit out the things that you want it to spit out.
Absolutely, it's technology.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to treat it as technology, not as a person, despite how much it feels, seems, writes, sounds like a person. It is technology, and it's not meant to do and that's why it's not meant to do all of the work. That's why I like the wetware and hardware phrase, because you have to use both right now. If that changes in the future, so be it. But right now, we have to bring our cognitive power to the partnership.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So Sabina's asked, could you copy and paste the guest form or pop a link in the chat to how we can come on your podcast, please?
Oh, yes.
You may have lots of Mike's Podcast Club members knocking on your door.
Sounds good to me.
To get on your podcast. And that's like, it's live help, isn't it? Live support. A live ChatGPT support chat recorded with Steph.
Yeah, it is.
Great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I will, in the millions of windows that are open right now, I will put that over in the chat room. Absolutely. Come on the podcast. Here it is. Bum, bum, bum.
There you go. That's the form there if you want to be on Steph's podcast.
Please do watch one of the videos with other folks first, so you kind of know. It's a pretty short episode. It's like 10-15 minutes, and we spend some time beforehand getting to the specific task that you want to learn how to do, and then we do it during the thing, and I edit it so you always look good.
Good. That's what we want.
You're learning, but you still look good. Like those long stretches of thinking time that don't need to be in there, I take those out. So don't ever worry about looking silly while you're learning. Learning is good. Curiosity is the point.
I suppose that's a tip for all podcasters. Sorry, I suppose that's a tip for all wannabe guests is listen to watch the podcast before you pitch for them. Please do that. I've had a few in my inbox this week and I'm like, I've not even got a podcast, lads. I just make podcasts. So bit of a summary and stuff. Where else can we find out more about you and Coffee Like Media?
Well, the blog post that was up there, that's on the website. So the coffeelikemedia.com site, and also the chattyandme.substack.com. So those two are probably the best for these purposes.
Brilliant. Well, that has been so very, very helpful. And I think it's also demystified it a little bit because, again, it can be scary. It's the unknown. It's this big AI thing we keep hearing loads about. But I suppose if people have nailed podcasting and podcasting was scary, then you can nail I can't even say it. ChatGPT.
Just say chatty.
Chatty. You can get your head around chatty as well.
Let me tell you, chatty's way easier to use than most DAWs.
It's one day chatty might be editing our podcasts. Well,
there are there are tools doing that now. Maybe they'll get good at it.
Well, thank you very much, Steph. You've been an absolute delight. Thank you for joining us. Long-time member, first-time caller. A massive thank you to Steph, and thanks for taking the time. We really, really do appreciate it. You are a fountain of knowledge and we absolutely love you.